You're watching Channel 5.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Sitting in tonight, Sam Donaldson.
Good evening. President Bush lost no time today in attempting to make political hay out of this weekend showdown with Iraq, in which Iraq agreed under military threat to allow some UN inspectors into its agriculture ministry building. But as usual, Iraq was making things difficult for Mr. Bush. While the president was telling campaign crowds he has proved anew that he is the man to be trusted to handle foreign crises, one of Saddam Hussein's top aides was chortling publicly that Iraq had put one over on the president. And to muddy things further, some administration officials let it be known that they were unhappy with the way it all turned out. Mr. Bush was campaigning today in Michigan and Wisconsin, and ABC White House correspondent Ann Compton was with him.
It's clear that today President Bush was running for re-election to be commander-in-chief.
This election is not just about change, because change has a flip side, and it's called trust.
He warned that when the telephone rings at the White House late at night, a voice can bring bad news.
Carrying news of a coup in a powerful country, or asking how we should stand up to the Baghdad bully halfway around the world. And the American people need to know that the man who answers that phone has the experience, the seasoning to do the right thing. And I believe I have proved I am that man. And that's...
Mr. Bush never spoke Bill Clinton's name, but those around him certainly did, starting with the governor of Michigan.
America cannot afford the untried and untested Bill Clinton.
And Press Secretary Marlin Fitzwater may have been too eager to chime in when he told reporters Clinton had said the U.S. should bomb and strafe Bosnia. Fitzwater said, "That sounds like the kind of reckless approach that indicates he'd better do some more homework on foreign policy." But Fitzwater had it wrong. Clinton said no such thing. In fact, his position paper issued today is nearly identical to Bush policy. As for the president, he was trying to show himself as a man too busy to be dragged into the campaign yet.
I have not shifted gears yet from trying to make some good things happen for this country, including yesterday, making some decisions about standing up to be sure that Saddam Hussein lives up to these UN resolutions. He's going to do it. He may not know it, but he is going to live up to those resolutions.
The Bush campaign would like to make foreign policy a big issue, but the Iraq situation does carry some political risk. The critics say President Bush failed to finish the job the last time, and focusing on Iraq again may raise expectations that will be difficult to meet. Ann Compton, ABC News, Menasha, Wisconsin.
After returning to Washington from the Midwest, Mr. Bush scheduled a meeting with his national security advisors for this evening. As ABC's Bob Zelnick reports, while the president may be talking very tough about the man he calls the Baghdad bully, his advisors are not at all happy about the outcome.
Administration officials privately expressed anger and frustration at the ability of Saddam Hussein to control the crisis agenda. True, the weekend deal will allow UN inspectors into the Department of Agriculture to search for material related to Iraqi weapons programs. But the 3-week delay gave Iraq time to get rid of any damaging evidence, and the agreement prevents U.S., British, and French inspectors from entering the building. The affair left the administration vulnerable to fresh criticism from Senate Democrats.
Our so-called victory in this latest skirmish with Saddam Hussein is a very hollow victory at that.
The administration sees Iraq's conduct as a direct challenge to the authority of the United Nations. But now it needs to convince a reluctant UN that force may be needed if Iraq continues to violate Security Council resolutions. The U.S. claims Iraq is still using fixed-wing aircraft to bomb Shiites in southern Iraq, interfering with private humanitarian relief agencies, and refusing to participate in new boundary talks with Kuwait.
We expect Iraq to fulfill all of its obligations, and I think it's also quite clear that all options remain open.
While senior administration sources say that yesterday's deal erased immediate plans for military action against Iraq, equipment previously ordered to the area is still en route. The carrier Kennedy canceled shore leave in the Caribbean to head for the Mediterranean so quickly yesterday that about 50 sailors were left behind. and Patriot missile batteries, which began moving from Germany this weekend to protect Kuwait and Bahrain from possible Iraqi Scud missile attacks, will be deployed. Administration officials want to be able to strike quickly the next time there's a crisis with Baghdad, but they face continuing Pentagon doubts about how much could be accomplished by bombing and UN reluctance to again stoke the fires of war. Bob Zelnick, ABC News at the Pentagon.
The head of the UN inspection operation, Rolf Akayas, will be in Baghdad tomorrow when a team of 6 inspectors is finally expected to get into the Agriculture Ministry. Mr. Akayas admitted today he no longer expects to find anything incriminating on Iraq's biological, chemical, and nuclear weapons. For its part, Iraq is trying to turn the whole matter into a public relations victory over the United States. ABC's Sheila McVicker is in Baghdad.
The streets in front of Baghdad's Ministry of Agriculture were quiet this morning. There were no demonstrations, only posters and banners remaining as reminders of the standoff between Iraq and the United Nations. For Iraq's government, the agreement reached in New York yesterday was more than satisfactory. At a meeting of the ruling Ba'ath Party, Iraq's Prime Minister called it a brilliant victory. Tonight, Iraq's Deputy Prime Minister went on national television to explain to Iraqis what they have won. For the first time, he said, Iraq has been able to dictate the makeup of the UN inspection team and keep all the Americans off. Tariq Aziz said the agreement set an important precedent.
This confrontation was very beneficial to us. The U.S. tried to push us into a corner with their threats, but we stood firm, and they will remember this in the future.
Aziz accused President Bush of having only political motives in threatening an airstrike against Iraq.
In the polls, George Bush has 22%. By acting like a bully, he's trying to increase his support at home. At his news conference yesterday, you could see Bush was not a happy man. He wanted this confrontation to escalate. That's why he keeps making all these silly threats.
Senior Iraqi officials say that in the next few months, Iraq and the UN will square off over other even more sensitive issues, like the permanent stationing of UN inspectors in Iraq. And officials say they believe the Bush administration may now have decided to get rid of Saddam Hussein for good, so they predict more confrontations and a real possibility of war. Sheila McVicker, ABC News, Baghdad.
In a moment, Governor Clinton warns his opponents, don't try to label us. Free trade with Mexico. What will be the impact on jobs of American workers? And an Olympic sport that requires excellence ×5.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Post Grape-Nuts cereal.
I see no reason whatsoever to go back to the cereals that I used to eat.
Christina LaForgia just tried breakfast with Grape-Nuts for a week.
I need a lot of energy in my work. Grape-Nuts gives me energy throughout the entire morning.
Grape-Nuts, the fat-free natural energy source.
I love the taste. It's fat-free. I love that. I really love that.
Breakfast with Post Grape-Nuts cereal helps keep you going strong all morning long.
After you eat Grape-Nuts for a week, you will be eating Grape-Nuts for the rest of your life.
2 a.m., 36 Pine Street. Apartment 4C has a backache and can't sleep. 3C overdid her afternoon workout and is paying the price. 2C had an aching back, but fortunately, she also has Tylenol PM, with extra-strength Tylenol pain reliever, plus a gentle ingredient to help her sleep. And a good night's sleep was all she needed to make her day a whole lot brighter. Tylenol PM, so you can rest easy.
While the president was emphasizing his experience in foreign affairs today, Governor Bill Clinton was talking again about the need for change in domestic policy. Speaking to the National Urban League Convention in San Diego, Clinton said another single that he's not about to let his opponent define the campaign. Here's ABC's Jim Wooten.
Governor Clinton proved today that he could tell a black audience the same thing he's told white audiences around the country and still get an enthusiastic response.
We ought to end welfare as we know it. It ought to be a second chance, not a way of life. But to do it, you have to liberate people. You have to educate them and train them and liberate their kids. Then you can require them to take jobs. That would be good family values, help people to succeed as workers and as parents.
Clinton believes black leaders like these are more interested in beating George Bush than punishing him, Clinton, for his political preoccupation with the white middle class. He may be right.
His grassroots idea of bringing things home and helping out real people
I think are right on time.
I like what I hear so far, and I'm going to continue to listen.
The core of the Clinton campaign these days is to ridicule Republican efforts to exploit Democrats' traditional labels.
And when people in this election try to put on yesterday's broken record, tax and spend, 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 then the negative handlers, they push the arm a little further, and it sticks again and goes, liberal, 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 liberal.
One speech does not a campaign make, but Clinton's speech here today did seem to reinforce the basic blueprint of his campaign, which is to remove his party's liberal label, reclaim those white, middle-of-the-road Democrats it lost over the years without alienating its liberal base. Jim Wooten, ABC News, San Diego.
And then there is the almost candidate, Ross Perot. In Oregon today, supporters turned in 110,000 petition signatures to put his name on the ballot. A wasted effort for a non-candidate? Some of his supporters clearly don't think so. And as ABC's Mort Dean reports, the signals from Mr. Perot himself haven't made his intentions entirely clear.
The Perot phenomenon is beginning to resemble the Elvis phenomenon. While most of the Bantam billionaire supporters are convinced he is politically dead, others are convinced he is still alive.
I'm going to vote for him. I don't care whether he runs or not.
They are confused by his mixed messages.
No, he didn't say he didn't want to be on the ballot. He said, I'm not going to declare my candidacy.
When he was in the race, he usually talked sound bites and refused to talk specifics.
It's guns and butter time, as you know. I would have to study those very carefully. I have not had the chance to give it that much time.
But now that he is out of the race, he has released his full economic program and may even publish a book containing the rest of the platform he never mentioned when he was campaigning.
Tell me, do we have your support? Are you with us?
Is this just an attempt to influence the debate? Or, as the truest of Perot's true believers suspect, will there be a second coming in September or October?
I think we might be able to influence the election one way or the other.
Among the mixed messages, Perot has scaled back his phone bank, but he has not closed it. 100 lines before, 16 now. He has told close associates he will not reemerge as an active candidate, but he has done nothing to discourage supporters from continuing to get his name on state ballots. Signature requirements have been met in 2 more states, 26 now. Unless he intervenes, the number is likely to grow. In some states, including New York, Perot petitions are still being circulated. But faced with declining interest and depleted treasuries, many campaign offices are expected to close at the end of the month rather than face a new cycle of phone and electric bills. Volunteers who had paid some of those bills out of their own pockets don't know whether they can believe Perot's hint last week that a check would be in the mail. A Florida volunteer sued Perot, saying in effect either run or pay up.
Well, because he made an oral contract, an oral promise to do this with the public.
Once again this week, Perot's state leaders are visiting Dallas to discuss how much life there is in Perot the candidate and Perot the movement. Morton Dean, ABC News, New York.
In a moment, free trade with Mexico. What will happen to U.S. jobs?
Presenting the faucet. Funny thing about faucets, you might think they're all the same until you look into a Price Pfister faucet. Price Pfister faucets are, in a word, fabulous. Since they have a heart of solid brass, the fact is they hold up better and longer. No fooling. Nice, too. They're affordable. So when you're faced with getting a faucet, get a Price Pfister, the fabulous faucet with the funny name.
Suddenly, vitamins are all over the news.
And 2 out of 3 adults don't get all that's recommended in their diets.
The good news is Total has 100% of 10 essential vitamins.
With all the vitamin news, I'm eating Total.
This is regular. This is better. This Bayer is regular. For headaches, Anacin is better. Why better? Regular Bayer has 1 ingredient. Anacin has 2. A pain medicine plus a second ingredient that makes it work better. Get Anacin. Get better.
Look at me, enjoying a crisp red apple. Even with my dentures, thanks to Super Poli-Grip.
Super Poli-Grip holds so tight, many denture wearers can enjoy more of their favorite foods.
Even apples.
Super Poli-Grip.
your rugged routine, day after day. It's even harder when athlete's foot routinely comes back. Get prescription strength Lotrimin AF. It kills all causes of athlete's foot. Lotrimin AF, the finish line for athlete's foot.
Another round of talks over the weekend among Canada, Mexico, and the United States aimed at removing trade barriers for the free trade zone. U.S. Trade Representative Carla Hill said the talks produced progress but no agreement. The goal is a new policy setting up the world's largest tariff-free trading zone. President Bush has made it a top priority. Critics worry that it could cost U.S. workers their jobs. Here's ABC's Gary Shepard.
At this Ford assembly plant in Mexico City, where they make Tauruses and Thunderbirds, Mexican workers are paid as little as $65 a week. 2,000 miles to the north, at this Ford plant in Michigan, American workers earn more than 20 times as much, about $1,500 a week in salary and fringe benefits. That staggering differential in wages between the United States and Mexico has American labor leaders worried. They are concerned that the North American Free Trade Agreement, which would virtually erase America's southern border and allow products to move in either direction without tariffs, will mean the loss of 500,000 American jobs during the next 5 years, and not just in the auto industry.
The question is, if you're an American manufacturer, and if I now make the conditions optimum for you to move to Mexico, and you can save $20,000 on every job, why wouldn't you move to Mexico?
American unions point to the perfect test case, the so-called maquiladora factories that operate in Mexico just across the Texas border in a special free trade zone. In recent years, nearly 2,000 American companies have set up shop there, paying low wages to Mexican workers and shipping their finished products back to the United States. These operations have already siphoned away 500,000 American jobs. President Bush argues that in the long run, a free trade agreement will reduce the wage gap between the United States and Mexico, increase demand here for American products, and actually create new American jobs.
Free trade means more exports, more investment, more choices, more jobs for Americans.
The Bush administration also argues that free trade would reduce the flow of illegal immigrants into the United States, because Mexicans would earn a better living in Mexico.
The theory is that huge amounts of capital will flow to Mexico. That capital will translate into investment. The investment will translate into jobs. The jobs will translate into higher income, and Mexico will develop. That's the theory.
Once the trade negotiations themselves are completed, President Bush must submit the agreement to Congress for approval, a difficult political maneuver in this presidential election year.
Send Bush to Mexico, not our jobs!
It will be a tough sell to American workers who see their jobs being sacrificed to industry's thirst for profits. But it is good news for Mexican workers. 80 million of them are eagerly awaiting ratification of the trade treaty and the thousands of new jobs they expect it will generate. Gary Shepard, ABC News, Mexico City.
In Pittsburgh, the two daily newspapers tried to publish this morning for the first time in 2 months, but failed. Striking union members prevented non-union drivers from making any deliveries. There were about 24 arrests. The housing industry remains in a slump. Sales of existing homes were down last month 2.9%. It was the third drop in a row. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrials lost 3.5 points today to close at 3282. The trading was moderate. The House has passed a bill authorizing $48 million for each of the next 3 years to pay for services for homeless veterans. According to the chairman of the House Veterans Committee, 30% of the nation's homeless are veterans, and he says they deserve better. When we come back, new questions about the government's plans for fetal tissue research.
In our universe, there was always the unknown, the unpredictable. All we can do is prepare for it.
AT&T is now installing Fast Start. It can detect a cable cut instantly, so 800 calls can get back in minutes instead of hours.
We can send flowers for any occasion, anywhere, but only if our 800 service is up and running. Our 800 service isn't just a phone line, it's a lifeline.
I miss you.
AT&T has the most reliable 800 service, period.
AT&T. Call us.
Is this seat taken?
No, please.
So that's what you're eating?
too bad.
This is a whole grain cereal.
Yes, with sugar and preservatives.
Oh, and I suppose that you're
Kellogg's Nutri-Grain, it's made with pure whole grain.
Oh, really?
It's the only whole grain cereal without sugar or preservatives added.
The only one? I didn't know.
I know.
So what else should I know?
You have milk on your chin?
Kellogg's Nutri-Grain, as good as whole grain gets.
On vacation, I eat things I can't even pronounce. Sometimes I get constipation.
Only Ex-Lax pills give you 3 choices: regular, extra gentle, or maximum relief. Ex-Lax, for regular people who sometimes aren't.
Listen up, team! You want to keep your sandwiches fresh? Use Ziploc brand sandwich bags with the Gripper Zipper. Tough, tiny teeth you can feel gripping, so you know freshness is locked in. Let's win one for the Gripper! There's only one Ziploc.
Congress and the White House are getting ready to square off again over the question of fetal tissue research. Last May, the president announced a plan to set up tissue banks which would not use any tissue from induced abortions. There's new evidence tonight that those banks won't fill the need, and that the administration may have known it from the start. Here's Bettina Gregory.
In keeping with his anti-abortion stance, the president vetoed a bill earlier this year that would have allowed researchers to use tissue from aborted fetuses to try to find a cure for Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease. Instead, the administration said, scientists could get all the fetal tissue they needed from miscarriages and abortions for ectopic pregnancies. Now, a series of internal memos from top federal health officials concedes the administration vastly overestimated the number of fetuses that could be available from natural causes. One memo says they would not be sufficient for the necessary research. The White House predicted up to 2,000 miscarried fetuses a year could be available for the tissue bank. Congressional investigators say the bank would be lucky to get 24.
It is absolutely unworkable. They exaggerated deliberately. It's really shameful, because what they're doing is playing smoke and mirrors with the hopes of people with Alzheimer's disease.
The administration still says enough fetal tissue could be available without using aborted fetuses.
We think we can meet the nation's research needs. Why won't they give us a chance? I think there are a lot of people that don't want this concept to work.
This highly emotional issue is headed back to Capitol Hill. A compromise bill would allow scientists to use tissue from aborted fetuses, but only if they can't get enough from miscarriages. The bill is likely to pass, but it's almost certain the president will veto it. Bettina Gregory, ABC News, Washington.
2 Russians and a French researcher lifted off into space today for a 12-day mission. In addition to making some repairs to the space station Mir, the flight will also generate some cash for the Russian space program. France paid about $12 million to put its astronaut on board the Russian spacecraft. In Colombia, 3 more senior army officials involved in the bungled attempt to move the drug lord Pablo Escobar to a new prison have been fired. Escobar escaped last week. Reporters say he had been living a pretty good life inside. Escobar's cell was actually a 2-room suite with jacuzzi, a 60-inch television set, guns, money, jewels, a cellular phone, and wall-to-wall carpets. In a moment, looking for excellence in the Olympics 5-ring event.
Morning breath.
Once you're married, you get used to it.
Deep down, you know it's a problem.
I don't smell anything.
Lucky you.
Morning breath. If I had it, they'd tell me.
Ignoring morning breath won't make it go away. Scope will. Its 2 powerful ingredients kill 90% of the bacteria that cause morning breath.
Was my morning breath really a big problem? Oh.
There's no denying it's a problem. Kiss morning breath goodbye with Scope.
The Maytag refrigerator. It's not only durable, it's adjustable, so that whatever the future holds, your Maytag will too. Buy one now and get the best warranty in the business.
Here goes my future.
I found a safer aspirin, Ecotrin.
For minor arthritis pain, Ecotrin's orange coating makes it safer to your stomach than plain or buffered aspirin.
So I'm not concerned taking even the maximum dose.
The safer aspirin, that's Ecotrin, and that's the truth.
You make me feel so young.
Promise Extra Light Spread. Half the saturated fat and calories of margarine and a taste you'll enjoy with all your heart.
You make me feel so young.
Now Promise Extra Light in sticks. Get heart smart.
Every second of an asthma attack can feel like an eternity. That's why there's Primatene Mist. Primatene opens clogged breathing tubes fast when speed counts. Primatene Mist, fastest type asthma relief without a prescription.
Tonight on Nightline, how much Congress really costs. Most lawmakers won't talk about it, but the numbers speak for themselves. Billions every year. Tonight.
At the Olympics today, a couple of gold medals for the U.S. in swimming. Pablo Morales in the butterfly, Nicole Hazlett in the freestyle. Bad news for the U.S. volleyball team. Its victory over Japan yesterday was reversed. Judges ruled that an American player who bad-mouthed an official should have been thrown out of the game, changing the outcome. In basketball, Charles Barkley got a technical foul for cursing a fan. Magic Johnson sprained a knee. But the U.S. superstars still beat Croatia 103-70. At the other end of the superstardom scale are the competitors in the modern pentathlon. Almost nobody knows their names, even though an American is right in the thick of it. In Barcelona, here's ABC's Dick Schaap.
He is part Errol Flynn. Part Johnny Weissmuller. Part Clint Eastwood. Part John Wayne. He is a pentathlete, a competitor in the modern pentathlon, a 5-ringed Olympic event designed to blend the skills a Napoleonic courier once needed to foil the enemy and fulfill his mission. They are related but contradictory skills, some rewarding aggression, some rewarding calm. No American has ever won a gold medal in the modern pentathlon, although the first one to try, in Stockholm in 1912, would have finished first if he had placed high among the shooters. But George S. Patton, who became famous as a general, choked up in the shooting and finished 5th overall. Rob Stull, in his 3rd Olympics at the age of 31, is a latter-day Patton. He has a chance to win if his shooting holds up. Fencing is Stull's strength, and his performance yesterday put him in 3rd place among the 66 competitors.
3 guys are going to walk away with medals. 63 guys are going to walk away with memories and experiences that are going to last them for the rest of their lives. And I think that's really the true spirit of Olympism.
The pentathletes are true Olympians, united by their dedication to a sport they know won't make them wealthy or famous. Dick Schaap, ABC News, Barcelona.
That's our report on World News Tonight. I'm Sam Donaldson. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
Tonight, it's a special night and special time for America's favorite sitcom. It's the season's top-rated new show.
What are we going to do about Brad and Randy? They keep tormenting Mark.
Why, we had Mark, so they'd leave us alone.
Home Improvement at 8, 7 Central tonight.
Amazing Blue Star ointment stops itching fast. Jock itch, ringworm, tetter, relieves athlete's foot. Blue Star ointment, the one that's guaranteed. Ask for it.
There's just a word, and there's no mistake in it.
Hello, Joe. What do you know?
All right, let's sample a bottle. I'll make it 2. 1 for you and 1 for me.
Now we're getting warm. Diet Coke.
Kids come in all sizes and shapes, and different kids need different beds. For the best selection, come to
Kid Beds!
At Kids Beds, this all-wood bunk bed is just $99.99.
All right.
Or this tubular bunk bed with double-sized bottom bunk is $195.99.
Wow.
Plus, day beds start at just $45.99.
Cool.
For the best prices and biggest selection of beds for every kid, it's